If you asked me a year ago, I would have said my life was right on track. College degree almost finished, a steady job at a small tech company, and weekends spent hiking the endless green trails outside Seattle. I had plans, deadlines, dreams. But plans don't ask for permission before they fall apart. My name is Evan Reed. 24, stubborn, maybe too loyal for my own good. My world was small but solid. My parents' house where I'd grown up, my childhood friends still living within a few miles, and a future I could practically touch. I lived with my mom and stepdad after my real dad left when I was 6. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I saved enough to get my own place. I paid rent, bought groceries, even helped cover utilities when things got tight. I thought we were a team. I thought family meant something. When the offer came in to transfer to our Denver office, bigger projects, better pay, it felt like everything I'd worked for was finally happening. I sat down with my mom the night before I left, the kitchen heavy with the smell of her pot roast, the TV murmuring quietly in the background. "Just keep my room," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll be back for the holidays. It's not forever." She hugged me tight. "It'll always be here," she promised. And I believed her. I packed half my life into my old sedan, promising I'd visit as soon as I could. As I pulled out of the driveway, the porch light blinked above me, a tiny lighthouse against the sprawling dark. I didn't know then that when I came back, that light wouldn't be waiting. It was late December when I finally made it back. Snow clung to the sidewalks, and the air was sharp enough to sting. I drove the familiar roads with a jittery sort of excitement, imagining the warmth of the living room, the smell of Mom's baking, the comfort of knowing some things never changed. When I pulled up to the house, something inside me hesitated. The driveway was crowded with unfamiliar cars. A "for sale" sign leaned drunkenly in the front yard, half buried in the snow. My pulse spiked. Dragging my duffel bag behind me, I climbed the front steps and knocked, even though this was supposed to be my home. Voices floated through the door, laughter, the clatter of dishes. Mom opened it, a little surprised to see me. Her smile was quick but tight, like it had to be pulled into place. "Evan," she said. "You're early." "Early," I echoed. "I said I'd be home by Christmas Eve." She stepped aside to let me in, but already I could tell something was wrong. The living room was crowded with people I barely knew. Decorations I hadn't seen before covered the walls. Where our old photos once hung, now there were generic paintings and sterile, catalog-perfect furniture. I dropped my bag by the stairs and went to my room, heart pounding. The door was open. Inside, it wasn't my room anymore. Gone were the posters, the bookshelf stuffed with worn paperbacks, the Navy comforter Mom had bought me in 10th grade. Instead, there was a sleek guest bed, pale gray walls, and a desk stacked with home-selling brochures. I stood frozen, throat tightening. "Where are my things?" I finally asked, voice low. Mom hovered behind me, wringing her hands. "We packed up most of it. Some stuff we donated. The rest is in storage. We're moving to Florida." Florida. Like it was nothing. Like it didn't gut me. I wanted to speak, to yell, to demand an explanation, but all I could do was stare at the empty space where my life used to be. In that moment, I understood. The home I'd fought to keep alive in my heart had already been erased, piece by piece, without me. "You said you'd keep my room," I said, voice trembling despite how hard I tried to hold it steady. Mom sighed, brushing a hand through her hair. "Evan, things change. We needed to downsize. The market's good right now." "But you promised," I said louder this time. Heads turned from the living room, curious glances slicing through me. "I paid rent. I helped when you needed it. I was counting on this." Dad, my stepdad, appeared behind her, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You're an adult, Evan. It's time to move forward." "Forward?" "By throwing me out of my own home, without even a call." Mom flinched. "We didn't think you'd mind so much. You've been gone. You've got your own life now." I stared at them, feeling like the ground had tilted under my feet. I've been working every day to build something. I was planning to come back, to visit, to stay connected. Dad shook his head, as if I was being unreasonable. "Family changes, Evan. You can't expect everything to stay frozen just for you." Frozen? That was how they saw it. Like my life here had been a relic, something gathering dust while they moved on without me. Mom reached out like she wanted to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "We saved some of your things," she said quickly. "The important stuff." Important to who? The hurt was too sharp to hide. I looked around one last time at the strangers in my house, the stripped walls, the empty space where my life used to be. I guess I know where I stand now, I said, my voice breaking. And I turned and walked out, the cold night swallowing me whole. The night air hit like a slap as I stumbled off the porch. For a moment, I stood there, breath clouding in front of me. No plan, no place to go. The idea of calling someone, of admitting I was stranded, knotted my stomach. But pride wouldn't keep me warm. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. After a deep breath, I called Mia, a friend from high school who'd always said, "If you ever need anything, just ask." She picked up almost immediately. "Evan, you okay?" The lump in my throat threatened to choke me. "Not really. Can I crash with you? Just for a night or two?" "Of course," she said, without hesitation. "Come over." Now, 20 minutes later, I was sitting on Mia's couch, a steaming mug of cocoa in my hands. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a blanket and let me breathe. Over the next few days, I hunted for a place to stay. I scoured rental sites, made call after call. Every rejection was another bruise to my already battered pride. Places were too expensive, or they wanted a huge deposit, or they just went with someone else. But I didn't give up. Through a friend of a friend, I finally found a tiny studio above a garage on the edge of town. The walls were thin, and the heater rattled like a dying car engine, but it was mine. I bought a second-hand mattress, a thrift store table, and a couple of mismatched chairs. My belongings fit into 2 duffel bags and 1 small box. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As I sat on the floor of my new space, eating pizza straight from the box, a strange feeling settled over me. Not sadness, not bitterness. Hope. Maybe for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was building something of my own. It wasn't long before the messages started coming. First, it was a text from Mom asking if I could stop by and help pack. Then it was a voicemail from Dad, curt and cold, reminding me to clear out anything left because they couldn't hold on to junk forever. Junk. That was what my life here had been reduced to. Against my better judgment, I went back one last time. The garage was a wreck, boxes half opened, my old trophies tossed in with broken garden tools. My guitar, the one I'd saved up for during 2 summers of mowing lawns, was snapped in half, lying abandoned in a corner. I picked it up carefully, as if I could still fix it, but the crack down the middle told me all I needed to know. In the kitchen, I overheard snippets of conversation. Mom on the phone, laughing, telling someone how Evan's finally out on his own. We can breathe again. Like I'd been a burden. Like all the years of help, all the nights spent worrying about bills, meant nothing. I packed what little I could salvage into my car and left without saying goodbye. Later that week, Mia dropped by my new place with a housewarming gift, a cheap but beautiful lamp and a framed photo of the 2 of us from senior year. As she helped me set it on the wobbly side table, she said, "You know, sometimes the family you make is better than the one you're born into." I knew she was right, and I knew, deep down, that this time, I wasn't going back. The days began to fall into a rhythm. Wake up early, work long shifts at the coffee shop down the street, crash into bed exhausted but satisfied. For the first time in a long while, I was building something on my own terms. I took on freelance graphic design jobs after hours, pouring my energy into projects that made me feel alive again. Slowly, I started to stack small wins, a client recommending me to a friend, a local artist asking me to design their album cover. Each one was a reminder that my future was no longer tied to anyone else's expectations. There were moments, late at night, when loneliness crept in, when I'd wonder what it would have been like if my parents had been proud instead of distant. But those moments passed quicker now, replaced by the quiet strength growing inside me. Mia and a few others became my chosen family. They celebrated my first big freelance paycheck with dollar store decorations and a homemade cake. They showed up to my small art show, clapping louder than anyone else. I learned that trust wasn't about blood. It was about action, about showing up when it mattered. And most importantly, I learned that forgiveness wasn't about letting people back in. It was about letting yourself move forward. One evening, sitting on my thrifted couch, a laptop balanced on my knees and a mug of lukewarm coffee beside me, I realized something simple but powerful. I was proud of the life I was creating, not because it was flashy, not because it was easy, but because it was mine. Spring crept into the city slowly, melting the snow and waking up the streets with bursts of green. I walked to work one morning, the sun warm on my face, and realized I hadn't thought about home in weeks. Not the house. Not the people who had let me go so easily. Home had become the life I was choosing every day. It was the creaky floorboards of my studio, the cluttered shelves of books and art supplies, the late-night talks with friends who saw me, really saw me, without conditions. One Saturday afternoon, an email popped into my inbox, a job offer from a small design firm I'd admired for years. I stared at the screen, a smile creeping across my face. It wasn't just a job. It was a door opening, wide and bright. I signed the contract that night, feeling lighter than I had in years. A few days later, I got another message from my mom. A simple, "Hope you're doing well." I stared at it for a long moment, then closed it without replying. No anger, no sadness, just peace. I had forgiven them, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to be free. As I sat on my tiny balcony that evening, the city buzzing softly around me, I lifted my coffee cup to the sky in a quiet toast. To beginnings. To endings. To the family you find and the strength you build when the old walls crumble. To coming home to yourself.